The second thing is, I guess you want to call it oppression, where people do stupid things and then they literally open themselves up. So people open themselves up, and the next thing you know, they're under serious attack. And sometimes it actually happens physically. A person may wake up with scratches. I've had people with hand marks, burn marks that showed up on their bodies, all kinds of different things. The demons will literally attack them. That's demonic oppression.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Armor of God, and as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, everybody. And hopefully you'll be edified with what we've put together for you here. Well, for this video, I'd like to share a few stories shared by the exorcist Father John Szada, where he shared real cases he worked on before that involved the spirit board, suicide, tarot cards, and a woman climbing up the wall. And so now, the first case that I'm going to share with you is on the tarot cards. I guess I'm starting with this because I came across this article the other day, and I thought it's fitting to start off with this one.
The Masons, Masonic orders. The Masonic orders are all demonic. We've had many, many cases of people who have been under serious attack, spiritual attack, because of the history of Masonic involvement in their families. And so those things have to be broken as well. There are curses that go along with those, and they have to be broken. So there are portals, there are things that people will do, playing with Ouija boards, all kinds of stuff that people will do. As I said, crystals is one that a lot of kids get into, tarot cards. Here's an interesting one, a case that I knew of, a young girl. Her grandmother used to read tarot cards. And the young girl would just sit on her grandmother's lap, and that was it. The girl grew up, and now she's in college. And some of her college roommates decided they were going to play with these tarot cards, and they get out the little book, and they're going to read the tarot cards to see what the fortunes are and that sort of stuff. And the girl stood there and she said, "Oh, I know what that is." She said, "My grandmother used to do that all the time, and I can tell you exactly what that was." And she read the tarot cards, and boom, she was possessed, fully possessed. The demon came out, and the first things that he said to her, stupid witch, I had to wait in her for 20 years for her to make the first move." As soon as she stepped into the world of the occult, he possessed her. He was there the whole time. But she made the move, and he took advantage of it. So we have to be careful of all of those kinds of things, because they're real, and they do cause problems. So we call these portals. There are many, many different kinds of things out there today that open the door to the demonic.
Just remember that activities such as the one pointed out by Father Szada here all have one thing in common. They serve as entry points for demonic activity, which is why I'm going to share the following case as well, about a young man who went on a ghost hunting trip to a haunted house with his friends and try out the spirit board and see if anything's going to happen. In fact, maybe it's just me, but I've been seeing a rise in channels that focus on this ghost hunting thing, where they go to supposedly haunted locations, and here's the thing. A lot of these channels are attempting to talk to the demons in the videos, and some of these channels have huge following, with hundreds of thousands if not millions of views. Anyway, here's the clip.
I had a call one day from a priest. He said, "I have a young man in my parish who just called me and he's panicking." And he said, what happened was, this guy had some friends, and they said, "There's this house that we know of that's supposed to be haunted, and we want to go over there and we want to play with a Ouija board. They want to see if anything happens." So the guy said, "Okay, I'll go, provided that you get me drunk first." So they did, all right? I suspect he did more than just drink, but that's okay. So they went to this haunted house, and they played with the Ouija board. And guess what? It worked. And the demon that was talking to them said, answered their questions, all that kind of stuff. And then the next thing you know, the demon said, "Don't worry, everything stays here, it's part of the house, nothing will go with you home." Well, demons are liars. So he goes home, and he's under attack physically. He's being attacked in his bed and being attacked in his room, and he doesn't know what to do. He's really scared. He calls his priest. He said, "Father, what do I do?" The priest calls me and says, "What do I do?" He said, "This was an easy one, because this kid just was stupid. He did a stupid mistake." I said, "Just tell him to go to confession, and that'll take care of the problem." The single most powerful weapon that we have against the devil is the sacrament of penance. So if you haven't been there for a while, I strongly recommend get there. Because anything that you confess to the priest, is that great secret, the seal of the confessional. The priest can't talk about anything that you tell him in confession. The demons can't know anything that you tell the priest in confession either. That's blocked from their awareness. So when you go to confession, and go often, be full, honest, complete about what it is that you have to confess, because the devil can never use it against you. So the first thing is temptation, all right? We're all under temptation. There's no way to avoid that.
I'm sure some of you have seen the movie posters or some videos using the image of a possessed woman on the wall as their video thumbnails before. Now some might think it's just another exaggeration made by Hollywood, but unfortunately that isn't the case, as Father Szada pointed out here.
I had another case I'll tell you about where, again, a young lady was possessed and she had it. She couldn't handle it anymore. She was going to commit suicide. And she decided to go out and hang herself in the tree in the backyard. And as she was heading out the door, she saw a statue of St. Michael the Archangel on the table by the door. And something told her to pick it up and take it along with her. So she did. She went out, put the statue on the ground, put the noose around her neck, and all of a sudden her mother happened to be walking past, looked out the window, saw what was happening, screamed bloody murder, as any mother would, and at just that moment, a police officer was coming by, heard the scream, came running in, and saved the girl's life. You see, St. Michael is fighting on our side. That's why I always start with a prayer to St. Michael. This is battle. This is a warfare, all right? So sometimes, as I said, we get overwhelmed by these thoughts. Sometimes, though, people go even further, and they do all kinds of really dumb things, and they actually give themselves over to the power of Satan, all right? Again, that same young lady who attempted suicide, when she had been possessed, we freed her, but she didn't change the way she lived, and she went back to the same old stuff, and she became repossessed. It was much worse the second time. And so in this case, she starts manifesting, and she would go into these seizures. And so one day her mother rushed her to the emergency room, and she called me, and she said, so-and-so is in the emergency room. And they said, first of all, now we're talking about a petite Hispanic girl, about 18 years old, right? It took 4 big police officers just to hold her down. Second, they told me that they gave her tranquilizers that should have taken down an elephant and had no effect on her. She's in the emergency room. The doctors go out of the room to kind of, consult to see what to do next. And they came back in the room, and I'm not making this up, they found her literally climbing up the wall. Pretty good sign that she's possessed, right? These things do happen. In fact, one of the things that demons like to do is try to tempt a person to commit suicide. They get so depressed, so discouraged, that they just want to kill themselves, And unfortunately, I've lost one by that way. A person did commit suicide because she just couldn't handle what she was under anymore, the attack that she was under anymore. And so it's a really sad kind of thing, because you see, if you commit suicide, the devil wins. But the devil can't kill you. He's not permitted to do that, all right? So if you go to confession, you stay close to the church, stay close to the sacraments, that breaks some of that power that he has over us in terms of temptations and those kinds of things.
That last clip of Father Szada talking about suicide really hit home for me. It was in 2020 when the whole world was on a complete lockdown and I lost my job. I couldn't pay the bills and constantly worrying about debts and what to eat day in, day out. It was then that I thought about suicide on a number of occasions. I know there's no excuse for thinking that way, and I pray that I will never think that way anymore in this life. And I'm learning alongside all of you from these priests, and I hope you've learned a lot of useful things from videos like this that will be helpful in your own spiritual growth and journey. Anyway, I have a few more clips from Father Szada that I'd like to share with you here in this video. For the next one, I think some of you might remember Father Carlos Martins saying something like this before, about how every single child from the very first moment of their conception belongs to the devil. And I suppose the most obvious question is, why?
Because of the original sin, this entire world belongs to the devil. In any number of different places in Scripture, Jesus calls Satan the prince of this world. And that's exactly what he is. He controls this world until the end of time. He sets up his own kingdom in this world. And this is where the coming of Christ into the world is to break the power of Satan and to establish the kingdom of God in its place. So in a certain sense, until the end of time, there is this constant battle between these two kingdoms. Here's a very, very important thing to remember. Every single child, from the very first moment of their conception, belongs to the devil. It's part of his world. It is baptism that removes that child, us, from Satan's dominion and makes us children of God. However, it is possible during the course of a lifetime that people can do different things, make different choices, and commit different sins and put themselves back into the kingdom of Satan.
For the next part of this video will be something like what we already know, but it's good to keep on here as reminders. Father John, a priest at the Diocese of Phoenix, shared this. Repetitive sin, especially mortal sin, is one of the ways that sin wounds us. It extinguishes sanctifying grace in the heart. When we sin, it can drive the protective power of grace away. If we're involved in serious sin, when that protective grace is taken away, we're more vulnerable to cooperating with the enemy, and we're vulnerable to spiritual attacks. Then there are the less obvious entry points for the devil: unforgiveness and wounds like trauma and abuse. Forgiveness is much more powerful than we think, and unforgiveness can be much more detrimental than we think to our spiritual life. When we refuse to forgive, we end up carrying the spiritual weight of unforgiveness. So many people carry around that unforgiveness, that resentment, that vengeance, that desire for that person to pay for that debt of justice, for that wound or abuse. We have to give that debt of justice to God. One more way people may unwittingly open the door to the devil is through tattoos. As ubiquitous as tattoos are these days, that might seem like a stretch to some. They would be wrong. While the idea that every person walking around with a tattoo is cursed is not right, however, it's important to remember that there are practitioners out there who might curse their ink and you might not know it. When the person then has that tattoo on their body, they have a cursed item literally on their skin. They carry it around everywhere. For anyone who has been watching my videos, listening to these priests talking about the reality of spiritual warfare and are still skeptical, well, I think you need to hear this from Father Szada.
Open your eyes, smell the coffee, look around you. If you don't know what evil is, you don't live in the real world. Just look around you. It's all over the place. That's bad. So if they're skeptical, I feel sorry for them.
Now we know demons hate holy priests, especially these exorcists. I mean, how many times have we heard priests like Father Ripperger or Monsignor Rossetti saying they've been attacked by the devil before? But of course it's useless because they're protected. My point in saying this, however, they do get attacked a lot. These holy priests, which is why I'd like to share this from Father Szada, about how he was on the receiving end of one particular demonic attack.
You know, I've been attacked 2 winters ago. I had a situation where we have a chapel. It's the mission church in Jonestown, Our Lady of Fatima, which the bishop has given me as our base of operations, so to speak. And we were scheduled an exorcism, and the priest was bringing the person from another place. And I was on my way there, and the priest calls me and he says to me, Father, he says he doesn't want to go, he's too tired, he doesn't want to come. I said, no, that's the devil talking. He doesn't want him to come through with it. Make him come. So he hangs up. I'm driving along. The next thing you know, the phone rings again. He insists he's not going to come. He just does not want to do it. I said, well, we can't force him to come. So I said, okay. So I went to make a U-turn to come back to my home. And just as I started, this snowstorm came up. Snow, sleet, just blowing all over the place. I couldn't turn. My car drifted and went down into a ditch. And I was fine, all right? Called 911, the police came. I'm sitting in the police car while we're waiting for the tow truck to come. I had $5,000 damage to my car, by the way. I'm sitting in the police car, and the police officer says to me, "Gee, I don't know where that storm came from. They weren't calling for any snow. There wasn't supposed to be anything like that." And just like that, it cleared up. That was definitely a demonic attack. The demon was after me because of that, okay?
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. As always, thank you so much everybody for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully you've learned a lot from this video. And if it isn't too much of a hassle, please do share this video on your social media to help spread the message out there. Anyway, for those of you who'd like to support our works, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contribution, and prayer. And until the next one, stay safe, stay healthy, and may God bless you.